Casual Reviews, patch 7.2. Warning that there may be spoilers ahead. I'll try to be vague, but you've been warned. Also, going to have some footage in the background running from the dungeon. Alright, so where to begin? Story. So the story was fantastic. I felt like in 7.1 it was kind of meandering, and at the very end, it makes me think of the third Indiana Jones movie where his dad says, "You left just when you were becoming interesting." I think here we picked up the ball and ran with it. 7.2 did great with that. Introduced some new characters that are compelling, interesting, they're enjoyable to spend time with and do things with. One of them, maybe a trust member in the future or a party member. That's going to be cool because I really like that character. The new villain is appropriately villainous and mysterious. Gave us a few lore bombs for people to theory craft over. You know, the lore theorists for the next 3-4 months. Wicklemont was there, but she was more subdued and kind of they did a better show don't tell of, hey, look, she's a good leader because people care about her and listen, and you know, she helps people, not because we're telling you that she is and that everyone loves her. The new character was fantastic, played off the existing character as well. Was the main center of the story this time, which was really good. I don't know. Overall, I thought they did a pretty good job with it. They had a pretty strong climax, and now I want to see what comes next. And I think that's a good overall story patch when you have a story that is interesting, that is compelling, that has intrigue and curiosity and gets you thinking. And then when it ends, you're like, man, I wish it was longer and I want more. And not in a bad way. I think that's good. The 8-man trial story, fantastic. There was actually a pretty good story for it this time. You know, obviously it wasn't Pandemonium, but it was still like, hey, this is pretty solid. The ending was a little contrived, but you know, I can live with it. It was overall pretty good. The story of the third fight was actually kind of interesting. Yeah, overall, can't complain about the story. I want to see where it goes. The theory people will have, you know, a field day with this one for the next couple of months. That's great. I wish Crescent Island was already in. If you listen, it has the Nimian, Amdaporian, Mach, and oddly the Sunken City of Scala theme motifs. It's also in the Locks area. I don't know what that means, other than I think Scala may have been contemporary with the other 3 city-states, which was something I never realized before, so I'm looking forward to some story there. Unfortunately, we gotta wait 2 months. We gotta wait a month for the Moon story with the Crafter-Gatherers, but, you know, where we are right now, what we have with the story, I thought was pretty good, and I'm looking forward to what they come with next. If they can keep doing this, and you know, 7.3 may be the culmination of the story in a similar way to, you know, the way that prior expansions did in their 0.3 patches, and Walker being an exception. So we'll see if that happens this time or not. But either way, I'm looking forward to what comes next. Combat. So where to begin? In Dawntrail, as a casual player, as a person that I'm not a hardcore player, I'm an explorer / socializer type on the Bartle 4 types of MMO players. I'm not the type that likes challenge content. I occasionally do it. I've done extreme farms before. I usually clear a floor or 2 of Savage every tier. I don't really enjoy it unless I'm doing it with people that I like, you know, free company people and stuff. And then it's more the social aspect. I just am not into challenge content most of the time, unless it's solo challenge content, because then I'm not putting anybody out by mucking it up. So, you know, I do deep dungeon runs and stuff. I wish there was more of that in the game. But with less RNG, the RNG in deep dungeons is such a pain in the butt. But anyway, so I liked the dungeon. It was, I mean, the bosses can kill you. The final boss can do a cleave and then a party attack, and it will kill you if you get caught in it. There's plenty of stuff that will kill you. But the nice thing about it is the mechanic overlap. That's a big problem I have with a lot of the Dawntrail release dungeons and stuff, is where you got a bunch of mechanics overlapping and resolving at the same time, which is how I define difficulty. Some people define difficulty by, you know, in rages and DPS checks. I define difficulty by if there's a bunch of mechanics that are resolving at once, and especially if they're difficult to resolve correctly. That's where I define difficulty. This dungeon wasn't too bad. The pacing was generally good. A lot of the stuff you can understand intuitively fairly early on. So I thought it was good. I'm gonna, early on in Dawn Trail, I got my tomes from MSQ and Frontline Roulette, Praetorian, because I didn't want to do the dungeons because they were a pain in the butt. And now it's kind of like, okay, this isn't too bad. And as we get more gear, it's going to be even easier. So I'm okay with this. I'll be back in the expert mines for my tomes when I'm not doing hunt trains. The trial was too much. You introduced a new mechanic, but there's so much visual clutter, I couldn't see what was going on. I had to watch I watched an extreme guide before I figured out, oh, when an attack hits the rose area, it flares up the whole rose area. That's interesting. I never would have put that together during the fight. There was too much visual clutter. I went as Scholar, and I just massively overshielded the party, and that's how we brute forced our way through it. This is too much for normal mode. There needs to be a middle difficulty between story mode and extreme mode, and that's what this should be. This should not be story mode. If there are people that are like, oh, this was easy, okay, congratulations, you are a hardcore gamer, you are a raider, we all bow to you, you are better than average, pat yourself on the back, you're not the kind of person that I am, or like the kind of content that I do. That's just it. I like to relax, and this was not relaxing. It's more, the visual clutter makes it really hard to see what's going on. The 8-mans, we had a similar issue in the sense there's a lot of visual clutter. I finally just turned off spell effects. To me, this is a fantasy game. It's a fantasy setting. I like the story. I like the lore. I like the ambience of it. And when I have to turn off spell effects to see what's going on, that kills it to me. And so anyone's like, oh, this is what we do. Okay, you're a person. To me, that's a sterile way of playing the game. You've sterilized everything out of the game. And that's not fun to me. I like seeing people throwing spell effects. That to me is cool. And when I have to turn that off just to do mechanics correctly, that's frustrating to me. That isn't enjoyable. That takes something from the experience it doesn't add to. And there are plenty of mechanics that can be done where that isn't an issue, and I would like more of it. The first raid fight, there's visual clutter. There was stuff going on off the map. I don't use satellite view add-ons. If you're going to put stuff off the map square, you need to make it where I can zoom out further so that I can see them. Now, granted, I was a tank, so the boss model was all in my face, and I couldn't really see anything. But maybe if I'd been a caster off in the distance, it would have been better. But if you're going to keep putting stuff off the field, double the zoom distance. Yoshi P, please, just do it. Or stop putting stuff off the map. One of the two. I don't care which. Especially just in normal content, at least. But the first fight was fun. I like to snap flip mechanic. The cleaves, that's just kind of cool to me. It's like bam, bam, bam. The rhythm is kind of cool. I like the ads on the side where he goes left, right, 8 times. That's a nice way of displaying that, except I couldn't see it very well for the ones behind the boss model. I've been adjusting my screen since then to, move my camera pitch away from my character up, so maybe I'll see it the next time I run it. I don't know. Lalafell's max zoom, I think, isn't as far as taller races either, so that's also a problem. I don't know. There just needs to be something done to make it where that's more visible. But the mechanic itself is alright. The spotlight thing is a little weird, but not terrible. It seems to resolve funny to me. Like something about the timer is just weird to follow, and there's usually a bunch of other crap going on at the same time that makes it very visually cluttered. But overall, it's not bad. It's just, gosh, I was glad I was a tank so I could eat the Vuln stacks. The second fight, very well done. The wings on the motifs I didn't necessarily see. That wasn't really apparent to me. I wish they'd make that a little more apparent. And again, there's stuff going on off the side. Like somebody said, oh, she paints arrows and then a target. I never saw her paint arrows. I did see the target, though, for a bow tie effect. She paints the field into a desert. There's a sand pit. There's cactuses. It's like, okay, these are obviously things I should try to avoid. She paints it as, a field with a couple of bridges and a river. Oh, look, water. If it's fire attack, get in the water. If it's lightning attack, don't stand in the water. Intuitive, understandable. Oh, look, there's an orange telegraph through the water. Look, it's all covered in mud. That's apparently bad. Yeah. Good. Do more like this, where you don't need to watch a guide to understand the mechanics. It's just obvious that this should make sense. Fantastic. Do more like this. Again, stop drawing the stuff off the side of the field. Draw it on the field, maybe. And make it a little more apparent what's going on. Like maybe instead of wings on the bomb motifs, it should just be a big arrow facing the direction that they're going to jump. Maybe that would be cool. But overall, good fight. Third fight, fun, but terrible. Fantastic, but also obnoxious. Everyone in my fight complained. We wiped on this one like 8 times. We barely made time on this one. But everyone's end result was the mechanics are fun, but they hit too hard and they resolve too quickly. And some of them aren't intuitive enough for the first time to see them and respond correctly. Everyone did kind of like how you busted through different areas, kind of like like a Mortal Kombat or Marvel vs. Capcom fighting game. So that was a neat touch. The story that went along with it was also really good, but my gosh, the pace of the mechanics, how quickly they resolve, the overlaps, it needs to be toned down a little bit, and they don't need to hit as hard. But if those two things, mechanically, this is a good idea to progress with, but tone it down a little bit in the pace and the damage, and I think you'd hit a really sweet spot here, Square. Fourth fight, not so great, right? We wiped a bunch on that one. I think we wiped like 5 or 6 times just to get through the stupid DPS check. It wasn't because of the DPS check. I mean, it was a little tight because most of my party was not in raid gear equipment. These were mostly casuals. They complained a lot. We fortunately had a healer that was a hardcore raider, I think, was in good gear, didn't get killed, kept rezzing people, carried the party. Otherwise, we wouldn't have made it the time we did. Some of it's not too bad. Some of it's kind of like, okay, this is kind of cool. But then, the ad phase is a bunch of clutter and a bunch going on at the same time. And it's a fairly stiff DPS check if you aren't in raid gear already. If you don't already overgear the content, basically. And then you get to phase 2 or whatever, where the arena's smaller. There's a lot more overlapping stuff, which itself wasn't as bad, except at certain points I just stopped casting. I'm just going to resolve the mechanics, because there's too much going on for me to do this all at once, which is a terrible feeling. I don't like the feeling of I just need to stop pushing buttons and just resolve mechanics while the boss is still targetable, right? Terrible feeling, but you get through it. I hate the tower cutting mechanic. I hate that in any way the wind blows. I hate it in that one Ivalice fight. My brain does not do that. And the blue cut markers were just not, they're too jagged, so it's not really visible to me which way they're going to fall. I hate that mechanic in general. I especially hated it here. We had a Danger Dorito. I was following him around, and he was still getting us hit by a few things. So even the person that was quote-unquote good at it was still getting hit. Terrible fight? No, but it was the least enjoyable of all the fights. There was the most visual clutter, well, there was a lot of visual clutter, and it was too much. I don't know. It's going to suck that that's the one that we have to do. I would rather the second one be the one that I do each week for the weapon token, but whatever. We'll get through this, especially as people get more gear. So yeah, verdict. So my final verdict on it was good. The story was enjoyable. The characters were enjoyable. The dungeon is approachable enough that I'll be back in the extreme or the expert mines. The trial was too hard. The extreme version, I'm not even probably going to touch it until the next expansion unless I get dragged in by my free company. The 8-mans need to be toned down a little bit, and the visual clutter a little bit, and there needs to be less stuff, mechanics, off the stage, unless they're going to increase the view distance. But overall, I enjoyed the patch. I think there's enough stuff for me to be interested in for doing the new frontline. I've gotten to do once, and it was pretty fun. I don't know if it'll give you light for your AR relic farms. The old one did, for those who didn't know that. I'll have to test this one sometime. I still got a relic or two left to work on. But overall, 8 out of 10. The story's great. The character's great. If the fights were a little easier, this would easily be a 9 of 10 or 10-10 patch for me, but the fights are a little too much. Can't wait for Crescent Island in 2 months. Wish it was already out. Can't wait for Moon Exploration in a month. Wish it was already out. But overall, I think this is a good way to go if they can just listen a little less to the hardcore people and stop overtuning casual content. If they can just do that, we will be in a fantastic spot going forward, because this is good. This is a good way to progress forward. Just tone down normal mode fights a little bit. If you want to put fights like this in the game, that's great. Make medium modes. You can call them parenthesis hard, unclose parenthesis, because we used to have those at one time. Just make it its own mode, and make it what extremes used to be, right? Like Byakuya Unreal, where it's, the modern extremes are way harder than that. Make it like the older stuff, and give us that middle difficulty. That's great. This would be a good middle difficulty. But the casual story mode stuff should not be this. It should be toned down a little bit. But overall, I liked it. Overall, I'm going to find stuff to do, and I'm really looking forward to the future. So, hey, good stuff. Have a good one, everyone. Happy hunting, happy farming, and all that stuff. And yeah, if you haven't already played it, go play it. It's good. Later.